My name is Evan Mayberry. I am a father of 3, and I have a beautiful wife named Kate. She also goes to this church. I have 2 daughters and 1 son that was 4 months old now. I came to faith and found Jesus ultimately through my wife, Kate. When Kate got baptized, which was about a year ago in September, what I feel like what happened there, and I didn't know it at the time, but I really feel like she brought the Holy Spirit into our home. I've always had this image of the father and husband I've always wanted to be, and there was things, darkness inside of me that was preventing me from being that person. I had a lot of darkness and sinful behaviors in my own life that essentially were secrets, and I was living in some ways a separate life. Because I had those, I didn't realize the weight of those, and in the past I wouldn't have called it darkness. I wouldn't have called it evil or sinful. I would have just acknowledged that those were things I had that people didn't know about. I didn't realize the weight of those. And when I was at church, I always had this feeling like I didn't belong. And it was my subconscious, or honestly God, telling me, maybe it's not that God didn't want me here. I know He wanted me here, but it's also this function of maybe, in some ways, Satan didn't want me here because he knew he had a bit of a grasp on me, and that I was being brought more into an area of light, which was taking him away from that. And like when I reflect back on that, I feel like that's what actually was going on. My old self would have never said that though. Like a year ago, I wouldn't even acknowledged it. Through all these different series of events, he was showing me this light in this big pit of darkness. He was telling me, what Jordan Peterson said, you just need to lay it all out. And I finally was listening and interpreted that as like, oh, you have things you need to confess. I think it was when I chatted with you, when I told you my story initially, it was that first week after I confessed. You said, I mentioned that like, yeah, when I came to church, it felt like I couldn't understand what was being said. As soon as I confessed though, I could understand what was being said. I'm showing up as the husband and father I've always wanted to show up as through this confession. And ever since I made that confession, it's like I did a 180. My past has been a history of idolizing my older brother, then idolizing my father, becoming a dad, but not actually having anyone to actually lead me in my own life. And then when you made the correlation that, hey, God is your leader, and that's actually how I always open my prayers with God, I just realized like, oh, there's my leader. He knows what's good and true, and I just need to follow him. Baptism for me is just this act of, the way Keith put it, it's just this is the analogy I'm going to use, is you've donned these old clothes that you've always worn. You're the same person, but now God is giving you a new set of clothes to wear. Baptism for me is this idea of having those new set of clothes, washing away my sins, also knowing that I learned from them, and just going forth as, the person that I've always wanted to be.